Megyn Kelly gives a reality check to these celebrities who think just because they have a platform that we have to believe everything they say and that what their word is Bible. And we all know that's not true, but sometimes they need a reality check. And Megyn Kelly is here to give that to them with Ben Shapiro. It's going to be a really funny video. They're completely roasting George Clooney and his stupid takes on everything pretty much. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to RTM News because it ensures YouTube you are enjoying our videos, and in turn, they will continually show up in your feed and we'll push it out to more people. I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
Because I was Wendy Burcham doesn't make me actually Wendy Burcham and capable of speaking about what it's like to be married to Mr. Burcham or a shop teacher. But George Clooney, I realize this isn't the most important news, but it's interesting, is now starring on Broadway in Good Night and Good Luck. And I guess at the end of this show, he turns around and looks at the audience and offers a lecture on how journalism is imploding, that what's happening with the Trump administration is like McCarthyism, that we need a full, free, and fair press to hold this administration's feet to the fire. And this is why, I gather, he was profiled on 60 Minutes last night and asked about the Fourth Estate. Here he is in SOT 12.
Before we play this video, why did they not do the same thing with Biden when he was in office? And why do they not apply the same pressure to them? Because here's the thing, I have no issue with journalists keeping people in power accountable for their actions or behaviors for what they said they're going to do and what the people voted for. But where is this energy from celebrities when it comes to Kamala and Joe Biden? Because they did not get any sort of heat or any sort of pressure from these people, these prominent figures, these public figures that a lot of people look up to. And obviously nowadays we kind of don't, because we're like, all right, you don't care. You're just trying to get it back. Why did they not do that? Because if they did that, if they would have had that same energy with Joe Biden and Kamala, I promise you I'm not talking. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Hold everyone accountable. Hey, the way they left the border open, that's not cool. You know, a lot of people have lost their lives. A lot of dangerous things have happened because of that. I voted for, you could say I voted for Joe and Kamala. I want them to be in office. I even think they're doing an okay job, even though they didn't. But hold them accountable. If they would have that same energy, I'm not saying anything. I'm not yapping. I'm like, go ahead. But they're not. It's fake. It's all manufactured and it's annoying. But let's hear what George Clooney has to say.
When the other three estates fail, when the judiciary and the executive and the legislative branches fail us, the Fourth Estate has to succeed. Has to succeed. As 60 Minutes is here right now on our first day. ABC has just settled a lawsuit with the Trump administration. Journalism and telling truth to power has to be waged like war is waged. It doesn't just happen accidentally. You know, it takes people saying, we're going to do these stories and you're going to have to come after us. And that's the way it is.
So that's him backstage with his Edward R. Murrow, wannabe castmate supporters, lecturing all of us, Ben, on how it needs to be done and how, you might say democracy dies in darkness if the journalism people don't do more journalisming.
Yeah, he is so tiresome. Just as a human being, he's unbelievably tiresome. And I will acknowledge here that his wife, Amal Clooney, literally was complicit in some of the worst propaganda of the last several years. She was involved in the International Court of Justice's attempts to actually prosecute the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, for war crimes. She was a deep part of that. So she obviously wasn't speaking truth to power. She was part of the power. George Clooney has always been part of the power. This idea that he's ever speaking truth to power is nonsensical. That dude has more. He may have single-handedly been responsible for Joe Biden stepping out of the race. You recall that he wrote an op-ed in which he basically called for Joe Biden to step out of the race. And then the Democratic Party suddenly magically listened. So when he talks about this, he's speaking truth to power. What is the power inside, for example, his own party that he has ever spoken true, real truth to and not been listened? He wields outsized powers. Again, this idea that he's a powerless person who's fighting for the rights of the journalistic establishment. The journalistic establishment is what brought us here. This sort of worship that Clooney and others have for the journalismers is truly amazing, given how poor they have been at actually exposing truth to the light of day. He's speaking beyond a point where people have any respect for journalistic establishment at all. I don't know who he's talking about. The American approval of the journalistic establishment is in the 20% range. So who is he even talking to right now, dreaming of a time when journalists were these speak truth to power, fedora wearing, hard-boiled, walking around the streets of Chicago reporting, who
working
are these
class
people he is talking about? Yeah, exactly. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, that's celebrities when they talk about politics at all. I think we have already said this earlier. these people get paid to continuously spout these talking points. Hollywood, they're all clearly, right? I mean, do I have evidence on this? Probably somewhere in my arsenal of videos. But it's just like, there's no way on God's green earth, every single celebrity that is outspoken about politics just happen to be on the same side. There's got to be something controlling them, pushing them, pressuring them to be on the same side. It's been this narrative. It is not that they are all so morally superior to everyone else, which I know they like to act as if they are, but that's not the case. And so, yeah, Ben's completely right here.
You know, it's amazing to watch him talk about this. Like, it's now's the time. Where was he during COVID? You know, you saw last week the New York Times with its aha moment on COVID. Like, you know what? We really need to talk about the fact that this looks like it came from a lab. How is it we didn't talk about that for 5 years? Because you, New York Times, were calling people racist who said it looks like it came from a lab. Like, and then Bill Maher the other night had this like aha moment of like, geez, it really looks like Fauci may have been kind of a villain and not, you know, all.
It's so messed up. Do you guys realize how messed up that is? Just because you questioned the nature of the things that happened in 2020, just because you meant, well, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. I don't know. You're a racist. Immediately attributed to race. How dare you say it comes from China? How dare you say that? You're racist. Fauci is great. They made a Disney Plus documentary on the man. Like, he's like a God's gift to this earth because of what he did in 2020. Now, and this is why I feel like even Bill Maher, who has been really good lately on teetering both sides, but it's because but it's like, are you doing that because you genuinely believe that way, or because you have seen the pendulum swing and you're like, okay, everyone's going a little more right, so let me start acting as if I'm objective? It's a scary thought, because the way that we were treated for questioning things is crazy and wrong.
Well, these leftists are coming around to the truth of things like COVID. That's just one example. 5 years later than the rest of us, because George Clooney's idea of journalism is to just toe the party line when it helps the left and say what needs to be said and bury what needs to be said, as so long as it will hurt the right.
I mean, I'm just wondering, who are these journalists who aren't covering the Trump administration? They're like, who are they? It'd be great for him to call them out.
Right.
Hey, who are these journalists who are being so nice to the Trump administration all the way through? And when he talks about settlements that these various outlets are making with President Trump, that's because they literally engaged in slander and libel of President Trump. And they thought that they were going to lose a big settlement to him. It's not because they're trying to buy access to the president of the United States by paying him money. And if he's going to make that actual argument, then probably he should just make that argument overtly, as opposed to this sort of break the fourth wall. First of all, that must be terrible. That must be death in the theater. You're there to watch Good Night and Good Luck, and suddenly the actor turns to you and starts lecturing you, breaking the fourth wall about modern politics. How obnoxious he is just as a human.
Yeah. So here he is going on, this is to 60 last night, about, you mentioned his op-ed in the New York Times on Joe Biden and why he did it. Such a selfless, brave act, Ben. Here he was.
I'll make it kind of easy. I was raised to tell the truth.
Cap, you're lying.
I had seen the president.
Well, actually, maybe you were told. Maybe you were raised to tell the truth. You just don't do that.
Up close for this fundraiser, and I was surprised. And so I feel as if there was a lot of profiles in cowardice in my party through all of that.
Oh, wow.
And I was not proud of that. And I also believed I had to tell the truth.
That right there is such a lie. It's such a lie, Ben. Let me just give you the dates, okay? That fundraiser where he saw Biden almost falling off the stage, where Obama came out to grab him, was June 15th. The debate was June 27th. So 2 weeks passed. He said nothing. Then you and I both watched that debate, just like all of our listeners and viewers did, and saw the then sitting president completely implode. And it was very clear he had no chance of going forward.
And that is proof that they are liars. June 15th was this supposed fundraiser where you saw that he had declined. You knew the debate was coming up. You knew that he was cognitively impaired, and said nothing until the world, you had no choice, because we had all seen at the debate that he was, I don't know what he said, and I don't think he does either. Trump's famous quote. That was him the entire debate. Except for, if we even go back to 2020, he was still talking similarly. He didn't know what he was saying, jumbling, mumbling words, and not like stumbling over yourself like on an accident. Like this was just a regular occurrence because he wasn't there. You guys were acting like we were crazy. And then, oh, you just feel like you had to tell the truth. You would have said it beforehand, but you didn't. You didn't until the world saw. Interesting.
And it wasn't until July 10th, almost a month after he attended the fundraiser with him, that George Clooney finally wrote that op-ed after it became clear that Joe Biden wasn't stepping down. He's such a liar that he just encountered him at the debate and knew what he had to do.
It's especially because you remember we all covered Obama and Biden at that particular event. Yes. And that was the footage where Obama literally guided Biden off the stage by the arm. And we all commented on it at the time. We're like, this guy looks like he doesn't know where he is on the stage. It looks like he's being physically guided by the former president of the United States off the stage. That was when the White House started retailing the line that these were all cheap fakes, right? That actually Biden knew exactly where he was and was doing handsprings on the stage. And we had sort of cut out of context all of that. Clooney was there. Clooney was a co-sponsor of that event. And as you say, it's not just that he said nothing. It's that he was there and said nothing for weeks until it became perfectly obvious that Joe Biden was going to absolutely get clobbered by Trump in November. And at that point, that's when he stood. Now, it would have been something if after that event, like the day after, he had said, yeah, I saw him on stage. He looked terrible and we really need to get rid of him. Even that would have been late because the reality is that George Clooney has had access to Joe Biden for several years at this point, and Biden's been ailing. But as you say, the timeline doesn't match up. And again, I don't know why Democrats insist on throwing actors out there to pretend that they are the role that they are playing.
Right.
George Clooney is not a doctor because he was on ER. And George Clooney is not a journalist because he's in Good Night and Good Luck. And
because he was in One Fine Day with Michelle Pfeiffer back in 1996. You were still in your cradle. But they starred. I loved this movie because I was young, kind of always aspiring journalist back then. I was a practicing lawyer, but I had been told in high school I should be a journalist. It was always in the back of my head. And so I love this movie because she's like this, up and comer. And he worked, I think, for the New York Daily News or something like that. But anyway, it was like the two of them at the height of their fame. That doesn't make him an actual journalist. And so he's like, who is it? Is it Tom Cruise who tried to be a Navy SEAL, even though he was too old to be a Navy SEAL and put himself through SEAL training? It's like, you can try to go through the SEAL training. That's fine. You want to see if you can do it. But Tom Cruise didn't come out actually believing he was a Navy SEAL. He doesn't think he can flight fighter jets because of Top Gun. Only George Clooney feels like he's in the position to lecture all of us on how it's done, how it ought to be done, after having been silent, conspicuously silent for the last 4 years. Where's his lecture to the New York Times on how to cover brain infirmities, right? Right now he's upset. He's upset about the press. And to your point, the press is not falling down on the job in trying to cover Trump negatively. They're falling down on the job in plenty of other ways. Only in George Clooney's world does he have to come out now and lecture the press on how important they are more than ever. The dirty little secret here, however, is he speaks for all of them. The left-wing press, and by that I mean the press, is like, right on, they're going to sleep at night. He's right. It's so hard. Now more than ever, I'm needed.
It's embarrassing. And that's a scary thing about it all too, is that they genuinely, it is like that for them. It's like, I don't know how far up it goes till where, I don't know if they're just brainwashed, if they know that they're lying, if they know what the deal is with the mainstream media and stuff, but it's so bad. And I'm just glad that we're not, I've said this so many times, but at this point, but I'm still truly am grateful that people don't fall for it anymore. We're kind of like, okay, do your job. Just learn your lines and do a good movie for me, which has been a struggle for a lot of them lately. The movies have sucked lately, except for the very few that haven't. But I'm not saying you can't have an opinion. Celebrities, say whatever you believe to be true. But let it be what you believe to be true and not what you need to say in order to continue getting your paycheck. Because that's really just unfair to the rest of America that has to deal with the repercussions of your spouting nonsense that you don't even believe because you want to stay in Hollywood or wherever it is you're at. But shout out to Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro for calling them out. And I hopefully more people are called out and it gets more views. And, we continue to have this unification mission fulfilled. Because we need to be able to just objectively see what's going on, regardless of what side you're on, and get along and get over ourselves. That's what we really need to do. All right. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment down your thoughts below. I want to know what you guys are thinking on this, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.